Gina is an amazingly well-rounded support with unreal buffs and makes the fire team very powerful. She can also do this by equipping her very best build, which is going to be the 4-set effect of the Guardian set, as well as also the Sylph's Blessing on the 4-set effect bonus, because this can end up giving your whole entire team a 25% damage increase, with the Guardian set providing a 10% damage increase to any team member who has a shield, and then of course Sylph's Blessing can increase your entire team's elemental weakness damage by up to 15%. Another fantastic build for Gina for when you want to specifically use her in Hunter mode will be using the Guardian set, and now using Outstanding Connection for its up to 28% attack increase now. And then finally, when you want to use Gina in high endgame content but you do need a lot of total power, then you can just use any of the 8-set effect supportive sets. Artifact main stats are up next, and for her helmet, her gloves, and her ring, you'll want to go for additional attack being the best main stat, but attack percent will still work very well, as increasing her attack as much as you can will not only increase her healing output but also her shield effect and strength. But moving on, her bracelet, you'll want to go for fire damage percent because of course she's of the fire element, and when it comes to her boots it doesn't really matter which one you go for as long as you go for either crit damage, defense pen, or you could go for healing give an increase. Following your best artifact main stats, we have your Gina's best artifact substats, and of course we have additional attack and attack percent as the two most important ones you want to go for, with you then getting 50% crit rate with some surplus, followed up by a lot of defense penetration because the fire team does like to use a lot of defense pen to do a lot of its damage. And then you have stuff like damage increase, critical hit damage, and others, which are very good to help increase your Gina's total power to be as high as it possibly can be. Another really important part of building your Gina is definitely going to be equipping her very best cores, because once you equip the Ancient Wraith's Obsession as your mind piece, you can increase your attack by 5%. Her body piece then doesn't really matter which one you specifically go for, because none of them really benefit her kit too much, so just go for what you personally prefer, but above that, just focus on getting the right stats over the preferred passive. But finally, her spirit piece is actually pretty important because you'll want to use the Teeth of the Watcher, because this will be able to allow you to decrease your skill mana point consumption by 12% with the cost of decreasing your MP recovery rate by 10%. So this will allow you to forget about any potential mana problems with your Gina. And to then get the most out of your core's main stats, you'll want to go for additional attack, defense, and HP for all of your main stats, with then for the substats, you'll want to just go for whatever you're missing out of stuff like crit damage, damage increase, and also defense penetration. So the next really important part about building Gina is going to be her advancements and where her sweet spot is. And in my opinion, getting her all the way down to A3 is going to be her overall sweet spot, because it does give you a load of really great effects. But before I talk about that, let's talk about her A1, and this says when the mana circulation effect activates, which is one of the most important buffs in her entire kit because it can increase your team's attack and also fire damage by 15%. You can then further activate something called mana transformation, and this is how she applies your shields to your whole entire team, equal to 12% of her attack, and can then further increase your entire team's damage dealt and also damage reduction by 12% for 20 seconds. Gina's A2 then does synergize very well with her A1 because it increases the value of shield effect applied to all of your team members by 20%, and then further, when a shield is granted to a team member, that team member's damage dealt does then increase by 10%, so again, it all synergizes very well with stuff like the Guardian set. But her A3 being the most important one in my opinion says when the user uses gravitational mass, which is her first basic skill, Gina can create a gravitational field effect which does damage equal to 20% of the gravity of your skill's damage, and can then activate the halt effect on enemies that do touch the affected area, which is a 3-second stun. And finally, she can apply a gravity boost debuff, which is applied to targets hit by her first basic skill, which does increase the target's fire damage taken by 10% for 20 seconds. Then if you do want to take it further, her A4 is fantastic because it increases all of your team members' defense pen by 4%, and then for your fire team members, it's another additional 4% defense pen, totaling in up to an 8% defense penetration increase for your fire team members. Surprisingly then, her A5 is actually, in my opinion, her worst one, or at least it doesn't matter as much as the others in my opinion, because when a gravitational field is created, you can activate the space-time gap effect, which increases the damage of Path of Extinction by 60%, and this is her second basic skill, and can further increase it again by 60% damage to targets who do have the gravity boost effect applied. So again, it's just damage, which is not really too important for your Gina. Your Gina's skill level priority is up next, and with her being able to create gravitational fields, her first basic skill being gravitational mass is going to be the most important skill you level up, because its damage can go up to 2,122.5% of her attack as damage, which will affect the gravitational mass damage that she can do. And then like I said before, with her A5 being able to increase her second basic skill's damage by up to 120%, increasing this skill skills damage then to go up to 3,376.5% of her attack is damage will again be very, very useful for her in dealing a lot more damage. But for the rest of her skills, you can just follow the recommended skill level up order, which you can see in game, and this will give you all of the other information you do need. And some other really important information you definitely need to know about Gina is going to be her exclusive weapon, which is the Glamour of Self-Worth, and this is fantastic for her and also pairs very, very nicely with Kane Tawata, because you can increase your own attack by up to 12%, but even more importantly, when the mana circulation effect is actually activated, all of your team members will then recover 250 mana points, which is very, very good for the fire team, especially with Kane. Then on top of recovering your team's mana when activating mana circulation, you can actually as well increase all of your team members' attack and fire damage by 1%, stacking up to 10 times, so again it'll be up to a 10% increase in both. So then following up after Gina's exclusive weapon, we do have her very best team, and her two best supportive hunters are going to be using Essel Ridiru as your main breaker, and then either Yu Su-hyun as your main DPS for when you want a lot of defense penetration, or you could go for the likes of Kane Tawata for the huge amount of damage that she can deal. And if you don't know why Essel is so good with the fire team, it is going to be because of her Prey on the Weak debuff, which increases the target's fire damage taken by 0.3% and then their regular damage taken by 0.3%. But the best part of it is that it can stack up to 100 times, totaling in up to a 60% damage increase through this one debuff alone. And her weapon can increase your main DPS's attack by up to 2400 additional attack as well. Kane Tawata is also great because she can treat her second basic skill as an ultimate skill, whilst also increasing her stats by a huge amount through stuff like Sixth Sense, increasing her attack by 77%, her crit rate and crit damage by 20%, and it does even help with her mana issues. The penultimate section of this video is going to be your best shadows, and overall for the authority leader, you'll either want to go for either Beru or Bestie, because Bestie does give you a huge amount of defense penetration, and then Beru gives you a good amount of attack and crit damage. So depending on which authority leader you did choose will determine what supportive shadows you want to use, because if you're using Bestie, then you'll want to use Beru, and then finally Serbi the Cerberus as your supportive shadows, because they do both apply very, very good debuffs. Alright then, finally we have actually how to best use your Gina, and because she's a support, her skill rotation is very simple and very easy for you to use. As after you have used your Essel Ridiru, applying all of her main debuffs, hopefully stacking all of her Prey on the Weak, you'll want to bring in your Gina with her QTE skill, followed up by her first basic skill. This will then activate her core attack, which is the next skill you'll want to use, followed up by then her second basic skill as the final skill and pretty much your main rotation. So then you can bring in either your Kane or your Yu Su-hyun so they can do all of their damage. But just keep in mind, when you do have your Gina's ultimate, you can just use it pretty much whenever you want to. So there you have it. That is a complete and updated build guide to Gina, and of course if you did enjoy this video or you just found it useful in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always I will see you all in the next video. Peace!